Hey guys, welcome to my channel, Statements by Rainbow. So in this case, we're going to be talking about two brothers out of California, which was Sincere. He was 4 years old, born in August of 2016. Once adopted, he was known as Orrin West, and his brother, Classic, who was 3 years old, born in June of 2017, that was known as Orson. But for this video, I will be sticking to saying Classic and Sincere versus Orrin and Orson due to him being adopted and what went on. I want to stick to their birth names, Classic and Sincere. So in 2016, the biological mother came home to Sincere, who was about 3 months old at the time, doing a lot of crying. And the father had stated that he had only given him a bath, nothing more, nothing less. Once the mother had taken him to the hospital, it had become known to them through x-rays Sincere leg had been broken, in which in the x-ray you could see that the femur bone was broken and twisted forward. There was no other injuries, but the mother was informed by Kern County that they would be taking Sincere and placing him in an emergency foster care. The hospital believed that he had been abused. About a month later, Sincere was placed into an established foster home. And then once Classic was born in 2017, he was removed several days later from the mom. And, they wanted to keep siblings together. The biological mom, she did try to continually get the boys. She did make visits, but she was repetitively denied. In 2018, 1 and 2 year old Sincere and Classic had then been removed from the foster home that they were in due to one of the children that was in the foster home had went to school with like a scratch on their leg or something like that. From there, the children were placed into an adoptive home, and the mom still had made visits. The biological mom still made visits, and she started to notice changes within the boys, such as they were losing weight, there were unexplained scratches and stuff on them. Now, the biological mother did report the things that she noticed, but unfortunately, as we're coming to know, nothing was done. The adoptive family, they had 2 of their own biological children, if I'm not mistaken, and then 2 other adopted children, I believe, which were as well as siblings. So, of course, being adoptive parents, you receive money, which I will say roughly about $1,000. So about $4,000 was their income, and that was like their primary source of income. During the time of the boys coming, the adoptive parents, they lived in an apartment, but eventually they bought a house that was in more of a desert community. After about 4 months of living in the home, the adoptive parents had called 911, stating that the boys had went missing from the backyard. The adoptive dad said that the adoptive mother was in the home with the other children wrapping Christmas presents while he was outside messing with wood, and the boys were supposed to be outside playing, but when he came back out, he noticed that they were gone and that he had left the gate to the fence outside open. A search did begin for Classic and Sincere, and when the dad stated that he did go looking for the boys himself, or they went looking for the boys, as far as the adoptive mother and himself. But from the neighbors' cameras, it didn't show anybody coming and going during the time that the boys had went missing, as well as the gate had been closed the entire time. When the gate had been tested, it showed that it took effort for even an adult to open the gate, so there was less likely a chance of a 3 and 4 year old was able to get that gate open themselves. There had been no children footprints in the dirt, only adults, leading to the desert area that was right near the adoptive parents' home. Doing Looking at the cameras of neighbors, there was only 3 times some type of movement near the home, which was around about 5:12 when the adoptive dad went to go get wood from the backyard. About 5 something when he was seen going to look for the boys, and at about 5:38 coming back after so-called looking, and then about 5:51 when the police arrived on the scene. Now the adoptive dad, he had drove about only 6 minutes supposedly looking for the boys before 10 minutes later calling 911. They didn't want to speak really to the news, saying they were told to stay in the home. They did make a news report around about, I think, day 2, but neighbors and other lookers that were in the crowd during that time felt something was suspicious. You could see one of the people arguing that, they had 9 children, and if it was them, they wouldn't have left the children alone, not even for a second. So people had their suspicions from the beginning. And within talking, the dad, he had his face covered up, and the adoptive dad. And they just didn't show any emotion. The biological family and mother did help with the search, and the biological mother begged and pleaded that if her boys were found, to bring them home to her, that she had the capability of taking care of her boys. She just wanted them home, and that she missed them. During the time of the investigation, the other children that were in the home were placed in protective custody, and there was a total of 47 search warrants placed the entire investigation. A slogan that was out was, "Where are the boys?" When the adoptive mom was asked why wasn't she crying, her response was it was a difference due to them not being her biological children. The adoptive mother tried to imply that she felt that the biological family had something to do with the missing of the boys, stating that times she would let them go with a biological family member that was called Aunt Titi. And when authorities asked the biological family who was this aunt, they had no clue what she was talking about. The adoptive mother said times that this particular so-called aunt had kept the boys longer than what they were supposed to, so she was trying to stop, I guess, visitation or contact between the biological family. The new neighbors had said that they never seen Sincere or Classic in the 4 months that this family had moved in at all. The adoptive parents became suspects quickly, and they were starting to get investigated. In March of 22, they were arrested and charged with unaliving the boys, even though bodies had not been found. The mother of the adoptive dad had seen the family on several occasions before this, and couldn't remember seeing Sincere or Classic. She would allege they stayed in the van, or maybe they were at another relative's house or something like that. Or it was just so many children she paid no attention. There were times that she would watch the other children but never found it weird that the 2 boys wasn't there, claiming that she guessed because maybe the potty training issues weren't cried so much, and that it was a lot to deal with when trying to watch so many children at one time. The oldest biological child, who was 10 years old at the time, stated Sincere was deceased before they moved, and that his parents would chop up Classic's food and blend it and put it in a bottle, stating because he was messy, he would chew with his mouth open. Then there was a situation where they had told Classic to punch Sincere for stealing a drink. And at one point, Sincere was choking and vomiting. The next day, he was asleep on his belly and was cold to the touch and wouldn't wake up, and was told if he was to say something that they could all be taken away. He also had testified that after moving, he had heard a loud noise like when some soap or something falling. He hadn't really thought about it, but after that, he had never seen Sincere. Sincere and Classic had been deceased 3 to 4 months before the adoptive parents had notified the police. In May of 2023, they were found guilty of second-degree unaliving, involuntary manslaughter, and child cruelty with Sincere. But they were unable to reach a verdict on unaliving and conspiracy charges on Classic. Prosecutors decided not to retry the case on a hung jury due to the difficulty of the child witness, of the things he dealt with, being young, getting sleepy, it was a lot. So with Classic, they was found guilty of child cruelty and was sentenced to 15 years to life. The biological mother, she did file a lawsuit in 2022 for $40 million. In this case, who's to say what really happened in the beginning? That, I know they said he had a broken leg or whatever, but who's to say what really happened? Who did what had happened type of thing. Luckily, the mom, she did get visitation, but I do think that if they would have paid attention to what the biological mother was saying about the family, and it's not a thing of, oh, well, she's just trying to get them. Pay attention to it. Even if you got to remove them and put them in a different home, these boys' lives could have been saved. I think that for whatever reason, it was something about those two boys that they wanted them, but then they abused them. So I'm confused, and they're little, like, the busybody stage and all, but they had 4 other kids in the house. You should be used to it. So I don't know what was about them that these two adults took upon themselves to mistreat these children. And sometimes, who knows the background of the boys, but in their ways, but that's something when you decide to be a parent, that especially taking on other people's children, even having your own, you don't know what you're gonna get until you get it, So if they couldn't handle it, why not? Hey, I don't think they're the right fit for us. I thought it would be. You went as far as changing these boys' names and stuff, giving them whole different first names as well as giving them y'all last name, only to do this. And then it's unfortunately, most stories, when looking into their story, those are the names you see more so than their biological names. No, they don't get the right. They don't get that right to have those names still connected to those bozos. That ain't the word I'm gonna use, but that's what I'm gonna say right at this moment. Definitely a sad case. 2 children. I can only imagine what the biological mother and family was feeling. Whatever little situation that happened, and I'm not trying to downplay the broken leg, but turned into the worst situation possible. And, for them not to find the bodies, that's even more like they would never get closure, fully. Just from what I'm sure the little boy testified gave them more insight, but they would never get the full closure So that's my thoughts. I'm gonna say this. Be careful. When you out here doing the do and then you enjoying those few minutes of pleasure or hour of pleasure or whatever it is, you really, really think about, are you ready for a kid mentally, emotionally, financially? Because like I said, you don't know what you're going to get. And you don't know what you're going to get in the child, and you don't know what you're going to get in the other parent either. So be careful. And if you do decide to have the child and you just can't do it, give it to a family member. You can even drop the children off at the fire station. But you ain't got like whatever going on up here. Don't take it out on some innocent children. Don't. That's my thoughts, y'all. Y'all have a good one. Thank you for watching. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, and share. To find the bodies, that's even more like they would never get closure, fully. Just from what I'm sure the little boy testified, gave them more insight, but they would never get the full closure. So that's my thoughts. I'm gonna say this. Be careful. When you out here doing the do and then you enjoying those few minutes of pleasure or hour of pleasure or whatever it is, you really, really think about, are you ready for a kid mentally, emotionally, financially? Because like I said, you don't know what you're going to get. And you don't know what you're going to get in the child, and you don't know what you're going to get in the other parent either. So be careful. And if you do decide to have the child and you just can't do it, give it to a family member. You can even drop the children off at the fire station. But you ain't got like whatever going on up here. Don't take it out on some innocent children. Don't. That's my thoughts, y'all. Y'all have a good one. Thank you for watching. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, and share.